Welcome back. I will compare and both use the Book of Enoch and the 33rd degree Scottish Rite of Freemasonry to explain cosmology, not the typical mainstream version, but instead, I will reveal the occult version of cosmology of the ancients, long before religions. So let's start. 17th degree, initiate of the East and West. The image of Ahriman was the dragon, confounded by the Jews with Satan and the serpent tempter, after a reign of 3,000 years, almost had created the material world, in 0 periods, calling successively into existence the light, water, earth, plants, animals, and man. But Ahriman concurred in creating the earth and water, for darkness was already an element, and almost could not exclude its blaster. So also the two concurred in producing man, almost produced, by his will and word, a being, that was the type and source of universal life, for everything that exists under heaven. He placed in man a pure principle, or life, proceeding from the Supreme Being, but Ahriman destroyed that pure principle, in the form wherewith it was clothed, and when Normast had made, of its recovered and purified essence, the first man and woman, Ahriman seduced and tempted them with wine and fruits, the woman yielding first, often, during the 3 latter periods of 3,000 years each. Ahriman and darkness are to be triumphant. But the pure souls are assisted by the good spirits. The triumph of good is decreed by the Supreme Being, and the period of that triumph will infallibly arrive, when the world shall be most afflicted with the evils poured out upon it by the spirits, or perdition. 3 prophets will come to bring relief to mortals. Sosriska, the principle of the 3, will regenerate the earth, and restore to it its primitive beauty, strength and purity. He will judge the good and the wicked. After the universal resurrection of the good, he will conduct them to a home of everlasting happiness. Ahriman, his evil demons, and all wicked men will also be purified in a torrent of melted metal. The law of Ormuzd will reign everywhere. All men will be happy, all, enjoying unalterable bliss, will sing with Suziash, the praises of the Supremo Being. These doctrines, the details of which were sparingly borrowed by the Jews, were much more fully adopted by the Gnostics, who taught the restoration of all things, their return to their original pure condition, the happiness of those to be saved, and their admission to the feast of heavenly wisdom. The doctrines of Zoroaster came originally from Bactria, an Indian province of Persia. The 24 good and 24 evil deities, enclosed in the egg, are the 48 constellations of the ancient sphere, equally divided between the realms of light and darkness, on the concavity of the celestial sphere, which was apportioned among them, and which enclosing the world and planets, was the mystic and sacred egg of the Magi, the Indians, and the Egyptians, the egg that issued from the mouth of the god Neph, that figured as the Orphic egg in the mysteries of Greece, that issued from the god Tumung of the Caucasians, and from the Egyptian Osiris, and the god Phanes of the modern Orphics, principle of light, the egg crushed by the sacred bull of the Japanese, and from which the world emerged, that placed by the Greeks at the feet of Bacchus, the bull-horned god, and from which Aristophanes makes love emerge, who with night organizes chaos. Thus the balance, the scorpion, the serpent of Ophiuchus, and the dragon of the Hesperides, became malevolent signs and evil genii, and entire nature was divided between the two principles, and between the agents or partial causes subordinate to them. Hence Michael, and his archangels, and Satan, and his fallen compeers, hence the wars of Jupiter, and the giants, in which the gods of Olympus fought on the side of the light god, against the dark progeny of earth and chaos, a war which Proclus regarded as symbolizing the resistance opposed by dark and chaotic matter to the active and beneficent force which gives it organization, an idea which in part appears in the old theory of two principles, one innate in the active and luminous substance of heaven, and the other in the inert and dark substance of matter that resists the order and the good that heaven communicates to it. Typology, transliteration, allegory, the Book of Enoch, 69,2, the original 21 elders, or 21 constellations, messengers, and these are their names,
The first of them is Shemiatsa, the second Artukifa, and the third Ama-En, the fourth Kokaba-El, the fifth Tru-El, the sixth Rumiel, the seventh Daniel-El, the eighth Nuku-El, the ninth Baraki-El, the 10th Azazel-El, the 11th Amaros, the 12th Batuel, the 13th Basaziel, the 14th Hanana-El, the 15th Ta-El, and the 16th Semabsia-El, the 17th Yetro-El, the 18th Chuma-El, the 19th Juriah-El, the 20th Rami-El, the 21st Azazel-El. 24th degree, Prince of the Tabernacle. Tombs of Osiris and Isis. On one was this inscription: I am Isis, queen of this country. I was instructed by Mercury, no one can destroy the laws which I have established. I am the eldest daughter of Saturn, most ancient of the gods. I am the wife and sister of Osiris, the king. I first made known to mortals the use of wheat. I am the mother of Horus the king. In my honor was the city of Bubast built. Rejoice, O Egypt, rejoice, land that gave me birth. And on the other was this: I am Osiris the king, who led my armies into all parts of the world, to the most thickly inhabited countries of India, the north, the Danube, and the ocean. I am the eldest son of Saturn. I was born of the brilliant and magnificent egg, and my substance is of the same nature as that which composes light. There is no place in the universe where I have not appeared, to bestow my benefits, and make known my discoveries. The rest was illegible, to aid her in the search for the body of Osiris, and to nurse her infant child Horus. Isis sought out and took with her Anubis, son of Osiris, and his sister Nephthys. He, as we have said, was Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens. After finding him, she went to Byblos, and seated herself near a fountain, where she had learned that the sacred chest had stopped which contained the body of Osiris. 25th degree, Night of the Brazen Serpent. In the spring, the year or sun god appears as Mithras, or Europa, mounted on the bull, but in the opposite half of the zodiac, he rides the emblem of the waters, the winged hone of Nestor, or Bostod, and the serpent, rising heliacally, at the autumnal equinox, besetting with poisonous influence. The cold constellation, Sagittarius, is explained as the reptile in the path who bites the home's heels, so that his rider falls backward. The same serpent, the Oan, Aphronos, or Muse Aros, of Synchylus, was the midget serpent, which Odin sunk beneath the sea, but which grew to such a size as to encircle the whole earth. For these Asiatic symbols of the contest of the sun god with the dragon of darkness and winter were imported not only into the zodiac, but into the more homely circle of European legend, and both Thor and Odin fight with dragons, as Apollo did with Python, the great scaly snake, Achilles with the Scamander, and Bellerophon with the Chimera, in the apocryphal book of Esther. Dragons herald a day of darkness and obscurity, and St. George, of England, a problematic Cappadocian prince, was originally only a varying form of Mithras. Jehovah is said to have cut Rahab and wounded the dragon. The latter is not only the type of earthly desolation, the dragon of the deep waters, but also the leader of the banded conspirators of the sky, of the rebellious stars, which, according to Enoch, came not at the right time, and his tail drew a third part of the host of heaven, and cast them to the earth. Jehovah divided the sea by his strength, and broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. And, according to the Jewish and Persian belief, the dragon would, in the latter days, the winter of time, enjoy a short period of licensed impunity, which would be a season of the greatest suffering to the people of the earth. But Ho would finally be bound or destroyed in the great battle of Messiah, or, as seems intimated by the rabbinical figure, of being eaten by the faithful, be, like Ahriman, or Vasuki, ultimately absorbed by and united with the principle of good. Typology, transliteration, allegory, the Book of Enoch, 18:13, the mystic and sacred egg of the Magi, the Orphic egg, is also the Shemaim. I saw the 7 stars, like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the messenger said, "This place is the end of the Shemaim,
and earth. This has become a prison for the stars, and the host of the Shaman, and the stars, which roll over the fire, are they which have transgressed the commandment of Most High, in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed times, and he was wroth with them, and bound them till the time when their guilt should be completely ended, for 10,000 years. Typology, Enoch, equals this has become a prison for the stars, and the host of the Shaman. Typology, transliteration, allegory, the Book of Enoch, 18,6, the 7 great burning mountains, or the planets, archangels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of the Shaman above. And I proceeded and saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains, of magnificent stones, 3 towards the east, and 3 towards the south. And as for those towards the east, one was of colored stone, and one of pearl, and one of jacinth, and those towards the south of red stone, but the middle one reached to the Shaman, like the throne of Elohim, of alabaster, and the summit of the throne was of sapphire. The Book of Enoch 77,5, allegory, the 7 burning mountains, the 7 archangels, are also the 7 great rivers in the great sea. I saw 7 rivers on the earth larger than all the rivers. One of them coming from the west pours its waters into the great sea, and these 2 come from the north to the sea and pour their waters into the eastern sea in the east, and the remaining 4 come forth on the side of the north to their own sea, 2 of them to the eastern sea, and 2 into the great sea and discharge themselves there, and some say, into the desert. 7 great islands I saw in the sea and in the mainland, 2 in the mainland and 5 in the great sea. Typology, transliteration, Enoch. First, 7 great islands I saw in the sea and in the mainland, 2 in the mainland and 5 in the great sea. 5 are the planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, the great sea. Second, 2 islands in the mainland, the earth and moon, equals 2 islands in the great sea. Near the image of Rhea, in the temple of Bel, at Babylon, were 2 large serpents, of silver, says Diodorus, each weighing 30 talents, and in the same temple was an image of Juno, holding in her right hand the head of a serpent. The Greeks called Bel, Bulia, and Hesychius, interprets that word to mean a dragon or great serpent. We learn from the Book of Bel, and the dragon, that in Babylon was kept a great live serpent, which the people worshipped. The Assyrians, the emperors of Constantinople, the Parthians, Scythians, Saxons, Chinese, and Danes, all bore the serpent as a standard, and among the spoils taken by Aurelian from Zenobia were such standards: Persian dragons. The Persians represented Ormuzd and Ahriman by 2 serpents contending for the mundane egg. Mithras is represented with a lion's head and human body, encircled by a serpent. In the Sada is this precept: when you kill serpents, you shall repeat the Zendavesta, and thence you will obtain great merit, for it is the same as if you had killed so many devils. Serpents, encircling rings, and globes, and issuing from globes, are common in the Persian, Egyptian, Chinese, and Indian monuments. Vishnu is represented reposing on a coiled serpent, whose folds form a canopy over him. Mahadeva is represented with a snake around his neck, one round his hair, and armlets of serpents on both arms. Bhairava sits on the coils or on serpent, whose head rises above his own. Parvati has snakes about her neck and waist. Vishnu is the preserving spirit. Mahadeva and Bhairava are names of Shiva, the evil principle, and Parvati is his consort. The king of evil demons was called in Hindu mythology Nagarua, the king of serpents, in which name we trace the Hebrew Najash, serpent. In Kashmir were 700 places where carved images of serpents were worshipped, and in Tibet the great Chinese dragon ornamented the temples of the Grand Lama. In China, the dragon was the stamp and symbol of royalty, sculptured in all the temples, blazoned on the furniture of the houses, and interwoven with the vestments of the chief nobility. The emperor bears it as his armorial device. It is engraved on his scepter and diadem, and on all the vases of the imperial palace. The Chinese believe that there is a dragon of extraordinary strength and sovereign power in heaven, in the air, on the waters, and on the mountains. Their god Phoebe is said to have had the form of a man, terminating in the tail of a snake, a combination to be more fully explained to you in a subsequent degree. The dragon and serpent are trio fifth and sixth sign of the Chinese zodiac, and the Hindus and Chinese believe that, at every eclipse, the sun or moon is seized by a huge serpent or dragon. The serpent, source of the Hindus, which enfolds the globe, and the constellation Draco, to which also refers the war in heaven, when Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. Sancho Nathan says that Tuat was the author of the worship of serpents. Among the Phoenicians are consecrated, he says, the species of dragons and serpents, and the Phoenicians and Egyptians followed him in this superstition. He was Tile first who made an image of Celis, that is, who represented the heavenly host of stars by visible symbols, and was probably the same as the Egyptian Thoth. On the Tyrian coins of the age of Alexander, serpents are represented in many positions and attitudes, coiled round trees, erect in front of altars, and crushed by the Syrian Hercules. The seventh letter of the Egyptian alphabet, called Uta or life, was sacred to Thoth, and was expressed by a serpent standing on his tail, and that deity, the god of healing, like Aesculapius, to whom the serpent was consecrated, leans on a knotted stick round which coils a snake. The Isiac tablet, describing the mysteries of Isis, is charged with serpents in every part, as her emblems. The asp was specially dedicated to her, and is seen on the heads of her statues, on the bonnets of her priests, and on the tiaras of the kings of Egypt. Serapis was sometimes represented with a human head and serpentine tail, and in one engraving 2 minor gods are represented with him, one by a serpent with a bull's head, and the other by a serpent with the radiated head of a lion, on an ancient sacrificial vessel found in Denmark. Having several compartments, a serpent is represented attacking a kneeling boy, pursuing him, retreating from him, appealed to beseechingly by him, and conversing with him. We are at once reminded of the sun, at the new year represented by a child sitting on a lotus, and of the relations of the sun, of spring, with the autumnal serpent, pursued by and pursuing him, and in conjunction with him. Other figures on this vessel belong to the zodiac. The base of the tripod of the Pythian priestess was a triple-headed serpent, of brass whose body, folded in circles growing wider and wider towards the ground, formed a conical column, while the 3 heads, disposed triangularly, upheld the tripod of gold. A similar column was placed on a pillar in the Hippodrome at Constantinople, by the founder of that city, one of the heads of which is said to have been broken off by Muhammad II, by a blow with his iron mace. The British god. He was called the Dragon Ruler of the world, and his car was drawn by serpents. His ministers were styled adders. A druid in a poem of Taliesin says, "I am a druid, I am an architect, I am a prophet, I am a serpent." Nadi, the car of the goddess Throdwyn, also was drawn by serpents. In the elegy of Uther Pendragon, this passage occurs in a description of the religious rites of the Druids, while the sanctuary is earnestly invoking the gliding hug, before whom the fair one retreats, upon the veil that covers the huge stones, whilst the dragon moves round over the places which contain vessels of drink offering, whilst the drink offering is of the golden horns, in which we readily discovered the mystic and obscure allusion to the autumnal serpent, pursuing the sun, along the circle of the zodiac, to the celestial cap or crater, and the golden horns of Virgil's milk-white bull, and, a line or 2 further on, we find the priest imploring the victorious Bel, the sun god of the Babylonians, with a serpent. In the ancient monuments, is very often found associated the cross. The serpent upon a cross was an Egyptian standard. It occurs repeatedly upon the grand staircase of the Temple of Osiris, at Philo, and on the Pyramid of Giza, are represented 2 kneeling figures, erecting a cross, on the top of which is a serpent erect. The crux ansala was a cross, with a coiled serpent above it, and it is perhaps the most common of all emblems on the Egyptian monuments, carried in the hand of almost every figure of a deity or a priest. It was, as we learn by the monuments, the form of the iron tether pins, used for making fast to the ground the cords by which young animals were confined, and as used by shepherds, became a symbol of royalty to the shepherd kings. A cross, like a Teutonic, or Maltese one, formed by 4 curved lines, within a circle, is also common on the monuments, and represented the tropics, and the Colures, the Caduceus, borne by Hermes, or Mercury, and also by Cybele, Minerva, Anubis, Hercules, Ogmios, the god of the Celts, and the personified constellation Virgo, was a winged wand, entwined by 2 serpents.